In the southern Berkshires, located in the southwestern region of Massachusetts, sits the town of Great Barrington, where a seemingly ordinary school day took an unexpected turn when the principal received an alarming phone call from the local police department.
A plainclothes police officer entered an 8th grade classroom to search for a book, wearing a body cam to record an incident, which has raised legal questions and concern.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the ones that would be on one of these shelves. I don't actually currently see it here, so it may or may not be out.
Have you looked through the book yourself? So that's our concern. That's why we're here.
Yeah, it's a memoir about coming of age.
Kobabe's award-winning illustrated novel is the frequent target of bans, and according to American Library Association data, was the #1 most banned book last year.
I didn't have any specific information about this book until the afternoon on December 8th when my superintendent called me to start these discussions. But it's a coming-of-age story of a youth who is transgendered, and so it takes them through their school and formative years up through being a successful adult. So I think it's a great book, and I think it's a very useful resource for students who may be struggling with the same type of issue.
What is your opinion on a police officer coming into your school to search for the book?
I have a great relationship with the Great Barrington Police. I think they're hardworking. I think they're honest and dedicated. And in this case, I think they made a mistake. They should not have come in to look for the book without a search warrant. And I think if they had applied for a search warrant, there's no way they would have gotten one.
The school board saw lots of controversy in regards to the book Genderqueer. With a divide of opinions, teachers, students, and parents voiced their different viewpoints on whether LGBTQ+ should be taught in the middle school curriculum.
Outrage grew on social media last week over a 7th grade teacher who brought a book to class that some parents feel was inappropriate and pornographic.
Outrage grew after the book Genderqueer was seen on a 7th grade teacher's desk. Angry parents spoke to the school board demanding that this material be removed.
It's certainly not her place, nor does she have the training to counsel these young students in ways that may influence them on making life-changing decisions.
Leah Schatz and Karen Corrado came in to state their opinions on whether the book should be in the classroom.
I feel like a lot of the books written in the last 10 to 15 years probably don't have a whole lot of place in the classroom if it's trying to get away from what the classroom should be, which is teaching children their reading, writing, arithmetic, some history. You know, those basic things that we should all be learning, rather than so much emphasis on social issues at this time.
I think that the book itself does have some pretty sexually explicit imagery and obviously themes. So the same thing is true here. I think that it is a book that was in an individual 8th grade teacher's classroom, in their classroom library, and that there was kind of special permission needed to take the book out. The book itself probably lends itself to an older audience. And I could imagine that with the right sort of special permission to take out a book, that with the right kind of communication, that this could be a useful book in some ways, for older kids.
Could you explain exactly what your DEI work in Region 1 consists of?
The biggest goal for the work that I do is equity. And what that looks like is multifaceted. And so it's never only about race or only about gender, or only about social class, or only about sexuality. It's truly about all of those things as they're happening in a co-occurring way, both within ourselves as individuals as well as in structures and in institutions like schools. So one big goal for me is to move the needle in a way that they take ownership over the work and they feel like it's authentic to them.
How does your DEI work relate to LGBTQ+ lifestyle and relationships?
If there are students that are grappling with sexuality and there's an issue that comes up between students, and there's a question about how to handle it or what kinds of supports might be needed, what kinds of even like book recommendations would be great to have at certain levels. When we talk about materials for a classroom, one thing that's been talked about for decades now is the idea of providing students with what we call windows and mirrors. Right? So windows being a look outward at other people, other ways of living, other identities. And the other part is mirrors. So can we provide mirrors for students so they can see themselves and find themselves in the material? And especially along the lines of LGBTQ plus issues, I think it's extremely important to not only have those resources be ones that are talking about their LGBTQ plus identity, but to normalize the idea that there are multiple kinds of people, multiple kinds of identities.
Do you get any negative fallout from teachers, parents, or community members about your DEI work?
Yes. That's a short answer. So the negative things that I do find often come from assumptions about what they think is happening in schools and what they think are the potential dangers. There's no time when we should ever feel like we need to hide what we're teaching, and we should hide conversations that are happening in our classrooms. And the more we can include parents and community members in that work and make it something that we can just have an open conversation about, we start to really eliminate or maybe chip away at some of those false barriers and boundaries that our world have set up, right? And start to rehumanize each other.
Censorship being the suppression or prohibition of any parts of books, films, news, etc. that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to security. Do you agree that the book Genderqueer matches with that definition?